And I want to talk about like 4 basic principles of movement, and then you're going to try to apply those principles at speed, which, as you can imagine, is very difficult to do. Similar theme to yesterday when it comes to shooting fundamentals. Do you think the principles we're going to talk about are difficult to intellectually understand? No. Do you think they're hard to do? Yes. Unfortunately, that's going to be the way it works. Okay, first, when you like, as far as stance, we didn't discuss it at all yesterday. As far as stance, feet spread apart, knees bent, ready to move. This is what I want. Like, and I mean, the key there is that you're ready to move. You're ready for the next movement. So when you're in training, especially like, let's say I got a 2-position drill. I'm training. I shoot here, run over here, shoot this. Okay, finish the drill. You know, finish it out like this, all stylistic and everything. And then I'll get a time, right? I'll get what were the points and how fast was I? With me so far? But there's not really grading for technique like that. But in my opinion, there ought to be. When you're doing your training, you want to build the habits that are productive. And what I find is that I get out of position efficiently if I'm in the right position to begin with. What I mean is, if I'm standing here shooting and I want to go over there now, very naturally what everybody will do is kind of coil up like a spring, and they kick their foot back and then take off in the direction they want to go. And I would judge all that time as wasted. Instead, if I'm in position like this, looking this way, okay, I want to go over there now. I just look and go, and I didn't have to reposition anything, right? So this is, the key is, get in the right position to begin with, and you're gonna minimize extraneous steps and movement to get yourself moving out of position. Another problem here is when you're doing stuff like this, like bending down, kicking out your feet to take off, do you think that feels fast or slow? Feels fast, because it's a lot of effort. And you'll find like, the way something feels is not going to be really tied to how fast or efficient it is. If you feel like you're working hard, you're probably doing something wrong when it comes to movement. Okay, so that's what I want to see though on all the drills. We're going to start and stop the drills like this. As soon as you get off the start position on the stage, and once you're setting up like that, feet spread apart, knees bent, right? Very key. All right, when you move, full power, full speed is what I want. So that's like a kind of a weird thing, but I actually want it to be full power, full speed, meaning I get done shooting here, I'm going over there now. As I get going, like that first, I guess I'd have to stop here, but like that first step would be really hard, and then I only slow myself down when I'm mounting the gun and decelerating into the next position. So if I have a 20-yard movement, like 15, 16 yards of it is going to be as hard as I can go, and just on the back will be some braking. If it's like a 2-yard movement, the first half step will be as hard as I can move, usually. Then it'll be braking for the next step and a half. Does that make sense? So you always need like a braking zone. But when you move full power, full speed, especially in training, why is that? Come on, who's doing it? Yeah, you get used to it. You get acclimated to it. How many of you guys have seen footage of yourself at a match shooting, and you're like, wow, I felt faster than that. You see yourself you're just basically trotting through the stage, right? You get used to what good movement feels like by actually doing it and getting acclimated to it. So you have to do it in practice. A good rule for me, if you run this stage twice dry, back to back, you should be sucking gas at the end of it. You should be like, okay, shit, like, because it means you're putting all your effort into it, you're moving aggressively, and then at the same time, you'll be learning to slow yourself down and control your body. Okay, so these are all good things. This is what you should do. Gun up, ready to go when you come in a position to shoot a target. Like that, I think is obvious to people, but you don't see them understand it very well. A good example here, if I'm moving into this court to shoot these targets, I should have my gun up and be aware of my sight before the target's available to shoot. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm not saying the sight's right on the target. Maybe this is an opaque vision barrier and I can't see the target, right? But I should be aware that my sight's floating here. Am I looking at my sight? No. I'm looking for the target that I know is back there. Then eventually I locate a spot on that target and my sight sucks right into it. Okay, that's what I want. But the big thing is gun up, ready to go. The other thing is you want to minimize extraneous steps. So if you watch me come into position here, see that I took some number of steps and then eventually stopped versus like this. Is that a lot of extra stuff, isn't it? So we want to minimize extraneous steps. So things like shooting here, then like stepping when you target transition, shit like that is generally counterproductive and we should avoid it. Does that make sense to everybody? So 4 rules should be easy to apply. But if not. All right, I'll make an example of doing this dry. When I do the dry runs on the stage, what I recommend for you is you're not even going to touch the trigger. So it'll be like just gripping the gun properly the way you know how. Then you're going to look for a spot on the target. When you get the correct confirmation off that target, just go to the next target. With me? Okay, so this is good for a number of reasons, and sometimes you want to dry fire this way without pulling the trigger. So first, it's going to be faster. So there's no time while I'm sitting on target pulling the trigger. So the reaction needs to be more immediate. So it'll push you to be more immediate with what you're doing. The other thing is, since you're taking the trigger press out of there, you know that any movement you see in your sight is due to what your body's doing. It's not due to the trigger press. So I think you'll find a lot of value. Just take the trigger press out of it. Does that sound good to everyone? I know it's a little weird, but just try it. All right, I'll go through this and I want you guys to critique me. All right, what do we see? Anything?
You got it fast.
What's that?
You got it fast.
Did you see anything you thought was technically wrong? So what's the right thing for me to do now?
Go faster.
Go faster, exactly. If you're like, yep, that looked good. Okay, go faster. You see 2 runs, obviously elevated heart rate. Does that make sense to everybody? So you've got some sense of what it should look like third person. I want you to go through it really aggressively, help each other out, be like, hey, no, you're really bumpy coming in there or whatever. One thing I want to make a point about, watching me, like just my head's relationship to the gun. Do you believe those were good sight pictures? Don't be shy.
Probably weren't perfect.
But do you think I do what I was like?
Yeah.
You could see like I am aiming my ass off.
Yeah.
Like it was not one of these things we see a lot of guys who kind of wave the gun at the targets and move. It's like that's not what we're doing. Picking out small spots, get the sight on them, and so on, and be disciplined with that. Then the movement, super aggressive. Make sense?
Sure.
As weird as it sounds, you will get more out of this than anything else we do today. How many of you have ever dry fired in an actual stage? You're going to learn a lot doing it. It's very helpful. All right, let's go to the other side.